Everybody, welcome back. We got more WandaVision for you with Mike and Eddie. We're going to dive into the latest episode, which is episode 7. So if you haven't seen this far, I recommend not watching anymore because you will be spoiled. But if you want to talk about the show, hear about the show, then let's keep going on it. So episode 7, bridge episode, exciting episode, reveal episode. I don't know. Let's see.
Bring me Wolverthor!
It's good if you're not a fan. You know what I'm saying? Does that make sense?
Yeah,
right?
I mean,
I think every single one of these episodes is good if you're not a fan.
True.
Like if you went in the contest not knowing really who Wanda was, you'd be like, cool.
Right. Because like this episode like confirmed like a lot of theories, and I was like, oh great.
Yeah,
like,
it's the confirmation, right?
Right.
Mike, do you
we'll
agree with what Eddie was saying earlier, where we were talking about the idea that, you know, could you watch this show without seeing other, you know, MCU content?
I would say this, you could theoretically watch this show, but you might not get like the little Easter eggs that most every kind of fan does, or like the little things. But I mean, I would say if someone just watched the Avengers movies, they could probably get away with it without knowing much of the back. Like that's all you really need for her backstory is really the other than maybe Civil War.
Right.
That's the only other one.
Right.
But other than that, I would say you could get away with Age of Ultron and Endgame and Infinity War and kind of understand what's going on.
Yeah.
Captain Marvel too.
Captain Marvel would be the
But
other
I mean,
one,
I've
but
watched
it's so
them
small.
all, and there's times where I don't understand what's going on.
Right.
That's true. So anyway, that obviously dives into the start of the show and the episode a little bit. And, you know, we talked about this, I think, in our text, but I don't think we ever talked about it on any of the recaps that we did. I definitely noticed I forget which one you guys brought it up, but for the first time in the intro, Wanda's voice changing. Like this
I never noticed that. Sorry.
Yeah, so every intro that they do, her voice gets slowly like, I don't know if it's more sad or more like, it's just very like, it was like, welcome to WandaVision. Welcome to WandaVision. Welcome to WandaVision. Welcome to WandaVision. Like that, I mean, I did it a little bit, you know, I exacerbated it a little bit, but like this is the first episode where I was like, wow, all right, yeah, she's seems like she's not in a good space anymore. So little minor thing, but you know, I mentioned a little bit just at the start when I was doing the intro, is this a bridge episode reveal? You know, Eddie, you were talking about, and I know you had a lot of thoughts about this when we were playing catch today a little bit, but tell us why, like, you feel like, how you feel about this episode and why you feel that way.
Right. So this episode to me felt like a bridge episode, kind of like a confirmation episode. The last 4 episodes were very like hyped. There was a lot of things happening, a lot of surprises, a lot of shocks, and a lot of like, as Mike said earlier, Easter eggs. And this episode, it started off kind of slow, and it got, you know, and then the build up towards the end, kind of like, oh, great, all of them, and like all these things were confirmed. You know, Photon was confirmed, then Agnes was confirmed as far as Agatha Harkness. So like, this episode just felt like the bridge to the last 2, which I'm hoping will be incredible, because from what we're hearing, there's supposed to be some huge reveal for the finale, and like there's still people that haven't been introduced yet, so like there's still so many questions, but this episode just confirmed a lot of our theories. I personally love that about it, so it's great.
Yeah, Mike, how'd you feel overall about the episode?
Yeah, I liked it. I agree with Eddie. It was definitely like it put the, I don't want to call them minor theories, but what everyone talked about was like, yep, we're pretty much on point with everything that's going on. So it was like a affirmation sort of thing.
Yeah.
Right.
And also even with that, and we'll dive into it, you know, even though we find the answers that we all guessed what was going on, it was still like surprising.
Yeah.
So I thought that was very cool, that even though you know it's coming, like you're like, oh crap.
Like, how are they gonna do it? And then they do it, and you're like, oh, that was cool. Like,
yeah.
Did you guys catch in the intro when they were doing the little like the Wanda flashes and all that? There was a real quick one that had like letters cut out, like almost like a murderer serial killer writes. Did you guys see that? Where it says, "I know what you are doing, Wanda." Did you guys see that?
Yeah. So I watched it. I watched it right before we just came on, just to like get like a refresher. And I watched specifically the intro. And it was very a mix of like, I want to, like the soundtrack kind of reminded me of like The Office. but the video of it, it definitely was interesting, and I think I saw the lettering, and then I also saw, like, I think you mentioned it when we had texted before, that calendar with February 10th with a heart around it. So there was definitely little things, but I couldn't think of what that context would be. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Right. I might be able to fill that in, actually.
Yeah, what was that?
So all the different Wandas that were flashing across. There was a show I used to watch. It was great. It was called Happy Endings. I think the what's their name? Wow. The brothers. I can't think of their name right now.
The Russo brothers?
Yeah, the Russo brothers.
Yeah.
They worked on this show before they went over to Marvel, and so it was kind of like a similar Happy Endings intro theme. Also, one of the Wanda plates. There was one. It was like a license plate that said 12/28/22, which actually is a nod to Stan Lee. It was his birthday, which was December 12th, 28th. I'm sorry, December 28th, 1922, which is actually a pretty cool Stan Lee nod.
Cool.
So that was pretty sweet.
Super cool.
I enjoyed that a lot.
Yeah, no, that was. I mean, the intro part I thought was like, I kept trying to slow it down to see if I saw anything in there, and I'm kind of like, I'm probably looking to this a little bit too much, but yeah, I found that one a bit. And then,
Never.
Yeah, I know, right? I mean, I think I've watched.
No,
this
but
one
I mean, every intro has had some context and meaning to it, even if it's like a nod to an old show. Like the lyrics or stuff going on in it is definitely like everything that goes on in the show from the very beginning to the end is integral to what they're giving off. So it's not a weird thing to like go deep dive into it.
Yeah, sometimes
Never.
I think they're just messing with us, but I'll take it, honestly. Like, and Eddie and I were talking about this a little bit today, just the concept that the show is released weekly to me, and I think we've said this before, like, I love it because it does really build the hype a little bit more. As much as I like binging, it's just kind of like, I don't know, this does more for, at least for us, like we're like talking about it for 2 months or whatever, and versus maybe a week or something. So
It's a great marketing strategy to go one by one as opposed to a whole binge series. I mean, you're getting press and social media posts literally every single day to the following episode, so it's consistent. Like, if we binge this all in, I don't know, a weekend, we talk about it for, I don't know, a couple weeks and then be out the door. Like, it would be whatever. But I mean, like, you're building consistent hype throughout the fan base. It's lovely, and I wouldn't think of any other way to do it, honestly.
Especially with the gap that we've
And also, I think you wouldn't. What's that?
I was just saying, especially with the gap that we've had in content, I love it. But
Right.
Mike, we're gonna hit.
I was just gonna say that these week to weeks, one of the things that is kind of cool, like for instance, when on Netflix, when you binge watch like Daredevil, the middle filler episodes that really don't mean anything, you kind of like pass along to get to the very end. Like you just kind of like these, every one you're like watching intently to be like, what's going to happen at the end, where I think those binge ones you just kind of watch and blindly watch without really paying attention until the end and the outcome happens, and you're like, oh, this, every episode, at least to us since we've been talking about it, gives importance, even if it isn't.
Yeah. And this one in particular obviously starts off with Sword and Hayward, who's Mike's favorite guy. And
Fuck it. Fudge that guy. Fudge that.
And I think
One scene.
Yeah, he gets one scene and says we're gonna launch something. It's like, so Mike, he's still a bad guy, right?
I'm telling you, if he turns out to be a good guy, I don't know what you can give him an award for, but he deserves an award. It would be the greatest like role reversal of all time. It would honestly, like, he has to be a bad guy.
Yeah.
He has to be doing something really messed up. If he doesn't, then he should Oscar. Can you do Oscar, or what's the award? Golden.
I think it would probably be an Emmy for him.
I think it's Emmys.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
Give him one of those for best like stab me in the back for being a good guy award.
Yeah. I'm not sure
There was a theory that you would put in our chat about how he could possibly be Ultron, which I wouldn't put it past. Honestly, I mean, it's, first of all, James Spader was listed in the actors list. I mean, the cast list, and thank you. And we've yet to see him in those 2 more episodes. So I'm like, at some point, that's got to be revealed, even if it's a flashback. It's fine, but like, I don't know that. Like we said, if it walks like a duck and talks like a duck, it probably is a duck, and this dude's probably a baddie. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah, and I think, I mean, for me, and I've talked to you guys both a little bit about this, like, I could see, right now, I just think his motives are alternate than what everyone else has. Very similar to the Secretary of State with the Sokovia Accords, where he was just like,
Alexander Pierce.
yeah, no, not him.
He was Hydra.
Not
Oh.
Pierce, the guy
what's
that
his name?
Rhodey wipes away from the hologram in Infinity
Right.
War or whatever, whoever that guy is.
It's technically
Whatever that general.
I can't think of his name.
Yeah, he's a general.
yeah,
though,
he's based. I
or
think
Secretary of State
yeah,
General.
he's the general. Yeah.
So anyway,
He was in like the Hulk movies and all
Yep,
that stuff.
Exactly.
Right.
So I think there's a chance that he might be that, but I really think this Ultron thing, there might be something to it, because we know that Hayward is, but it comes up later in the episode with his cataract thing, and he's trying to do something with Vision. So he's trying to bring Vision back online. And we know that Vision, and I was talking to Eddie about this because I'd watched Infinity War just the other day just to watch, and there was a discussion when they were trying to decide what to do with the Mind Stone and Vision when Thanos was coming to get it. Bruce Banner says specifically, like, Vision is so many different people. He's Tony, he's Bruce, he's Ultron, and he's the Mind Stone, and he's Jarvis. So when he says he's Ultron, I thought of immediately how Jarvis went underneath during that same episode, or that same movie, and then eventually they found him. So I'm wondering if Ultron is still somewhere in Vision, and that Hayward's will eventually bring him out, and then I don't know, something could happen. So yeah, I'm with you, Mike. I mean, I know we only had one scene, but I think we definitely should keep talking about this Ultron thing until at least they say he's not there, because
Right.
I think it's definitely a chance. So
2 more episodes left before we can be like, all right, we're done. Like,
Yeah,
we
I
can
know,
just stop
right?
and call it a night.
yeah, and frankly, Eddie and I mentioned this earlier, or I mentioned this to Eddie earlier, but I think the next episode might be a flashback. I'm a little worried about that. I think I mean, look, I think it'll be cool because it'll set up the final episode, but we talked last week thinking there was gonna be an hour, and we're like, oh, it's not an hour. All right, so hopefully they're an hour, because I don't know if they've got 2 episodes left that are 30 minutes. I straight up know how they're gonna finish it. I'm just gonna be like, all right, you're gonna leave us hanging big time. So
Right.
So anyway, moving on back to the episode, the next
Love it.
thing that kind of came up was like the circus, right? And we joked about what happened to Darcy. I'm not sure something happened to her. I'll mention something here shortly, but Vision. The part I liked about that interaction really is honestly was Vision just kind of looking at her like, hey, you remember me from last night, right? And she's just like, why you creeping on me, bro? Like, what's up? But I mean, do you guys think Darcy's fine? Like, do you think anything happened to her? I think she's just chilling there. Obviously, he breaks her out of it eventually, but any special powers or?
Well, I don't know about special powers, but I went in a little bit of a deep dive, and the way they described her character from things that I was reading was she was an escape artist in the circus. So when you see her chained up, she's all chained, and then she like gets out.
Yeah.
Like it was like, I think that was her character in the show, that in the circus. But I'm starting to feel now that I think Monica's really the only one that's going to be changed into some sort of, obviously a mutation. Obviously she has powers, whether that's photon or whatever. I don't think it does everything for everyone. So I think that just became her character, and that was really it.
Yeah.
Because when Vision, unzapped her, she was back to her normal self and things like that. So I think it was like just a brief. I don't think what she turned into is important the rest of the way.
Yeah.
Right.
Other than maybe being an escape artist, so if she's trapped or chained up, she can escape, somehow. But we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I'll bring
The
up.
irony of her character was like for her to be an escape artist is like, because that moment when they were getting escorted out, it was Monica and Jimmy Woo that kind of like broke out of the shield, broke out of the sword soldiers, and she kind of just stood there. So it's kind of funny that she becomes the escape artist inside the hex when she couldn't. She was like, what? No, why didn't no one tell me the plan? Like, so it's just kind of funny that like that happened to her. Yeah, I thought it was kind of adorable. I mean, it was important for the drive of the story though. So that was cool.
Well, and one thing, and I was going to mention this later, but I'll hit it on it now with Darcy, is if you guys watch the episode again, notice how she knocks out that strongman pretty easily. I mean, I might be with you guys on the fact that no one else changes, honestly, because that feels like it'd be a lot. But there was a point when I rewatched it, I'm like, why? And it makes this weird kind of like funny clown noise when it does it, so maybe it's nothing.
Yeah, what I was just about to say, when she punches him, it makes like a honk sound.
Yeah.
Like it's playing to like the circus ridiculousness of it. So I don't think he's really a strong man. I think, he's just
He's just a
that
dude.
character.
Yeah. By the
For
way,
lack of a
there's-
better word, he's a clown.
Yeah, and there's a century.
Yeah, he's a soldier. I think he's a soldier in that group, and he's just, whatever. So
And
I
there's a
think he was the
Sentry
guy
Easter
that
egg
originally
there,
cuffed
too.
her to the car.
Wait, say that again, Eddie?
I think he was the guy that originally cuffed her to the car.
I think you're right.
Yeah.
Oh, he might have been.
Yeah. So I think
you're right.
her punching him back was kind of like, like, thanks for leaving me, jerk. And then, there it is.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's I mentioned this to you guys. I think the Sentry Easter egg in the belt. We'll see if that really. I think it's probably just nothing, but there has been discussion about him eventually being in the MCU, so we'll see. Jumping in next, you get and really a lot of the episode is just Wanda and just kind of what's happening where they're getting crazy. And the part that I kind of found interesting that came up next that was when the kids were asking her about Vision, and she made this comment that stuck out to me that was kind of like, if Vision didn't want to be there, then there's nothing she could do about that. And I was kind of like, okay, really? So I don't, Eddie, do you think am I, and this is kind of a theme here, am I or anyone else wondering, looking too much into that? What do you think? Why would she not be able to control that?
My thought is this, and I was thinking about this before we even got on. So when Darcy is talking to Vision and she's telling him and she's pretty much like recapping his life up to this point, which I thought was huge. I mean, he has no idea where he came from. He's trying to get an idea of what he's doing here, how he even got here, right? So she recaps him, right? And at the end, she says, "I've watched the show from the beginning. It's clear that you two love each other, right?" So when she says that line, which I think came before Darcy said it to Vision, Wanda is under such a, I want to say she's under a spell, because there's no way that someone would feel that way about someone that they love. I just don't believe it. And it's almost like you're talking to someone with what do you call it? Not amnesia. Oh my God, what's the word?
Like what they can't remember?
With dementia or like Alzheimer's.
Oh.
You'll say things and they just kind of they'll forget about it. You know what I'm saying? So like talking to Wanda, it's like, oh my God, I'm trying to put it this way. Like you can't tell her otherwise that she's trapped, because she thinks that everything is fine. She's under control and all that stuff. So like for her to say those things, it's not coming from a place of the heart. It's coming from a place of just confusion. And so that just sat wrong with me when she said that, and I was like, I don't like that, because like she does. She has to. Like even when she drove him through the ground in Civil War, they still went through. Like, they were still together in Infinity War. So like that like there's something there.
Yeah. Mike, you got any thoughts there? I mean, is there? You think Wanda's actually in control of Vision there? Or?
So I think it's a scenario like this. Like because I literally just rewatched it again, and the way I took her comment, at least from the rewatch, was, I think she meant it as like in the context of the show that she's portraying. Like if he doesn't want to be a part of the show, he won't. But like he can't leave the Hacks, and she knows that for sure. Like she knows he can't go anywhere. So I think it's just a matter of her saying like, if he doesn't want to play this game like of make believe with me, I can't make him, which is true. Right. But I think it wasn't in the sense of like leaving the Hex or world they're in. It's not playing family like she thought they would be doing from the very beginning,
Yeah.
That's how I took it.
I gotcha. Now, and like as that scene kind of progresses, the next interesting part to me was twofold. Like it was just her and the kids a little bit, the twins specifically. And there's 2 points I want to bring up with you guys. I want to hear what you guys' thoughts are. Is that they ask Wanda about Pietro, and Wanda kind of says, "Don't believe anything he says. He's not your uncle." But then they're like, "Well, who is he?" And she's like, "Your mommy doesn't have all the answers." That's one thing. And then obviously shortly after that, Agnes comes in, and I want to touch on that. Actually, let's stay on the Pietro part for a second, because this really does, at the mid-credit scene, I'll call it, eventually we get to that point too, where it's like, so where are we at with Pietro at this point? Like, and let's just talk. I mean, we have to add the mid-credit scene in my mind to really kind of talk about this, and we don't have to go over to the show, but he shows up, right? With Photon there, and it's kind of like, and there's some purple that shows up, and it's kind of like, who is this dude? Like, what the hell's going on? You know what I mean? Is this Mike? I don't know. I need some help here. Like,
the way I took it, especially at the mid-credit scene when we find out who Agnes is,
such a good reveal.
It feels like she has more control of the characters than perhaps we thought Wanda did. because everything that she showed, like in almost every call it episode, she was doing something to control the narrative of the show. And even this episode, and I think we talked about it via text, and I think you had a question on it. But when, you know, they're doing the fourth wall thing and the director talks back at Wanda, that's for sure her.
Mm-hmm.
I heard the voice. It's just her,
Oh, is it her voice?
making her.
Yeah, it's
her
just
voice
modulated.
being, yeah, she's doing it like she's, what do you think? Like kind of like that. So,
Okay.
and with the purple showing, like when she touched Herb,
Yeah, Herb.
she was controlling him. There was purple on Pietro, so I think Pietro specifically, I think, was brought in by her, and I think she does have control over some characters. And I also like want to possibly think now that all these things that say, like, they've always said, like, all these people that even Vision, who like unvisions people, they're like, we hear her, but they never say Wanda. At least I don't remember. And I think that's actually they're hearing Agnes. Like, she's the director of this show and kind of making it her own to control Wanda, if that makes sense.
You know what?
She's almost making it think that's Wanda's show, but it's really not.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah.
Right.
At the beginning, when Wanda was being interviewed, she specifically says, you know, when she's like going through her whatever traumatic of what she did the night before, she says the universe that we made, or the whatever she says, like the hex, she was referring to the hex, she says we made. So it clearly gives some indication that there's someone else. So that's a good point, Mike. You know, I didn't think about that. That's pretty solid. And you know, to stay on Agnes for a second, and I have to throw this one at Mike just because of his fandom towards Spider-Man, but so Agnes once, you know, she said, I only bit a kid once. You know, she kind of looks at the thing, and there were some theories out there that it was her as a spider. So, what do you think the percent chance is that she was somehow the spider that bit Peter Parker?
I think that's going too far. I think we're going deep. I think
Such a reach, bro.
Yeah, I know, right?
that's a reach. But yeah,
I wanted to bring that up to you to see if that was just
if they somehow correlate that, then like my mind is melted. Like they're going too far. Like,
yeah, you're gonna be like, how long has this person been involved in this thing? Like, what is going on here? That's like some deep level, like everything during Thanos and all that. So
yeah,
I want to say one thing real quick.
Yeah.
Back to the part where they were in the house and Wanda's getting up and she's like getting the cereal from the kitchen. Like everything's kind of like phasing in and out from different decades of the show.
Yeah.
I was watching with closed caption on, and there was like a radio playing in the background, and it was like thanks for tuning in to WNDA, which is Wanda for short, and they're talking about the Halloween episode, and they said calling the kids ghosts, and specifically saying seeing them coming out once a year, and we only ever saw them through one episode, which is like kind of like a weird thing to say. Pardon me, I thought that was like super odd when they did that. Pardon me. And with Agnes, oh my god, she's so good. For her to be doing this the entire time and just like doing little manipulations throughout the episode, it's amazing to me. And I don't think that she did it alone. That I think honestly that Rabbit is somehow involved. If we're ever going to touch on that,
because go there.
Cool.
We'll
get
go
there.
I agree with you about the Rabbit. I
right.
We'll go towards the end, but yes, I agree.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no,
Continue. Sorry.
Yeah, no, you're all good there. You're all good. So, like, jumping off of Agnes just for a minute, the next thing that kind of starts coming up, we talked about this a little bit with the cataract talk with Wu and Monica, and where they're like in the car and all that kind of thing. So it's like, and it kind of leads to something what I'll get to in a second. But we talked about Ultron, and that I could kind of see him coming out there with that, just the concept that Hayward's doing there. But I've got to be honest with you guys here. This led to probably my biggest letdown in the show, but I'm not sure it's the show's fault. Commander Goodner. So, we've been talking about this aerospace engineer, right? And I told you I got chills down my back with like if it was Mr. Fantastic and all these things. And the shows currently make it seem like that's who Monica was meant to meet up with. She gets this rover. It's like the space thing. It's kind of like, okay, so I just, Eddie, I'll start with you. Like, Do you think that's the aerospace engineer? Do you think that Commander Goodner, I think's the name? Like, do you think that's it, or do you think that there's something more to play out there?
I have two theories on this one. So on this particular one, I will agree. When that happened, they built it up so much to be something epic, and then it landed, and I was like, that kind of fell flat. I was kind of upset by it, but there might be more to it. So one theory is that maybe she just works with somebody else, and she is like a byproduct of like what this person's like. They sent her out instead of like the actual person coming through. Like they might come through later in the show, right? Yeah. Which is fine. It's totally fine because I mean, like when she says it's their space rover, I naturally assume Fantastic Four because that's how they got their powers. So if I'm correct, at least in a few
iterations.
Iterations. Thank you. That's how they got their powers. My other theory is that she might be a separate division of Sword that was working with Maria because she's like, your mother wasn't the only people that we trust and all that stuff, and also might be working with Fury. So she might actually be a Skrull. That's an option too.
Oh,
which I wouldn't be surprised by because I think we kind of forget that Fury is in space on that ship with all the other Skrulls. So he's kind of like embedded in this in this kind of like this family of Skrulls, and she might actually be one. Like there's a good chance that because if you remember back in Captain Marvel, she became friends with one of the they were playing Uno on the steps with one of the Skrull. I think it was one of the daughters or the daughter of the couple. So like there's a good chance that might be her, but we don't know. I mean, there's a couple of theories, but then it's an option.
Yeah,
so.
That's interesting because in Far From Home, Spider-Man, there are Skrulls in that too, so they're clearly at play with what's going on with Fury and Sword and all that stuff. So,
right.
Yeah, I mean, if we're talking about people who could be Skrulls, Hayward definitely could be a Skrull.
Very true.
He's bad Squirrel then, right, Mike? I mean, he can't be a good one.
Yeah, he's
true.
He's no. I mean, they want like weaponized things. So
yeah,
him trying to weaponize, like I think obviously he would be a bad one. He's a bad guy. If Hayward's not a bad guy,
Mike will be thoroughly upset.
I'll be upset.
Yeah,
I'll be upset.
I feel you. So. And we'll come back to that interaction, what happens shortly after that. They do a good job in the episode of bouncing between each kind of area of the, between what's going on outside the hex, between those two parts. Well, I really just monarch on them. And then the two different groups on the inside. So like the next thing that happens on the inside, it goes back to Vision and Darcy. And I think Eddie touched on this earlier where, there was a lot of character development in this. And what I took away the most from this was that through all the things that they were doing, it was all about Vision figuring out kind of who he is, and ultimately that culminates with him really getting the understanding of, wow, Wanda watched me, she had to kill me, and then after that someone brought me back, and she had to watch me die. But Darcy really laid that to me, it was like a hammer of a line where she said, but your love is real, and that's where I think then I mentioned this to, I think, Eddie a little bit today, where it's just like, I think that's what's gonna, like, no matter what happens in this, no matter if Vision gets upset with her about something, he's gonna go to that and be like, you know what, she's my boo, like she's just like ride or die, we're together, we're through this no matter what. So I don't know. I mean, do you guys think that the whole Darcy and Vision thing, I know we talked about it a little bit, I think Mike, you mentioned earlier, so I'll jump to you, Eddie, like what do you think that, am I right there, am I wrong? I mean, what do you think about the Darcy Vision interaction? What do you think it means for, what's to come?
I like it. It was an introduction of like that age-old quote, like love conquers all. And it seems like in every superhero movie, there's always a love interest, and this follows the same script. I liked it because she didn't do it in a way that was like tough. She really kind of like walked, held his hand and walked him through his life ever since he was born in in Age of Ultron.
Yeah.
And she told him, she was like, listen, like this is what happened, and then it happened twice. So like, she's seen you die multiple times, and it's been rough for her. So, and I mean, I thought it was a worth it scene. It was great character development for both Darcy and Vision. Yeah, Mike, what are your thoughts?
One thing I want to say, because I didn't really touch on it, but to go back to what we were talking about, if Gooder is the only outcome of who she was talking to, that's the biggest letdown, because they did like 3 episodes on who she was texting. And if it's just to get a rover,
that's used for like
that makes me upset.
3 seconds.
That could have gone literally anywhere else, and it would have been fine.
Yep, anywhere else. Just give me anything but that small interaction. And then to go to what we're talking about now, in regards to the Vision and Darcy conversation, I think the one thing that it does specifically for Vision is Vision, at least in these last couple episodes where he's wondering why Wanda's doing these weird things, I think it gave him a realization of why she's doing it. Like, she's basically lost the love of her life twice.
Yeah.
And she's trying to have a semblance of having them together. So I think all those, like the last couple episodes where he's questioning it or he's snooping and doing all that, I think he kind of understood. Like, you know, it's like, you know, kind of like you said, like, Wanda's like ride or die.
Yeah.
And she's like doing everything she can to get him back. And if it's this weird world, I think he like realized that. And maybe is sympathetic to it. I think obviously doesn't want it to be like this, and wants to like save the people in this world and do the right thing. But I think he might understand where she's coming from in terms of maybe the pain she's in or these weird decisions she's been making throughout this process.
Yeah,
Sure.
I can see that. I think that's definitely where they're gonna go with like their love story, just to make sure like that stays solid, because I think that is at the crux of kind of everything they do. So, you know, we already mentioned, you know, Darcy knocking out the strongman and all that kind of stuff, and then it really goes back to Wanda going nuts again. You guys, you know, I was gonna ask you about the voice and the actor, but it sounds like, you know, you picked up on that and said it really seems to be Agnes there. And then, so the next thing that comes up, and I kind of want to spend some time on this a little bit, is the commercial. So for anybody who like, and this really wouldn't make sense to anybody who's not like, I'd say you don't have to be a Marvel nerd, but who like knows everything, but you have to recognize that something's there. So the Nexus, there's two things that can come from this, right? Yeah, and I'll mention them, and I'm curious to see what you guys think, if it's either of these or if it's just nothing again. One is like, there's like the Nexus Earth or the Nexus reality, where all different multiverses kind of are centered around this Nexus Earth, so that they all basically pass through there, or the convergence, Dark World, Thor 2 type concepts, that where all that stuff comes together. The other part of Nexus is there's Nexus beings, which I'll pop this up on the screen shortly after this as I pass this along. I'll start with Mike, but these Nexus beings are people who basically have they're the same person regardless of the reality that they're in. So Mike, my question really, or what I want to hear from you, like, what do you think is this commercial? Like, what's happening with it? Is this saying that she's a Nexus being, is it Nexus Earth, like, or is it just nothing and she's depressed?
No, I think there's going to be some like I said, every commercial has been a tie-in to something, and that's happening in that episode specifically. So I do agree with you. I think it's either some sort of Nexus Earth or something along those lines, because I think there's a tagline at the very end. And also I liked that it was like every one of those commercials where, you know, it gave you like, you know, what's going to happen to you, or, you know, it was a very good commercial. I thought it was very well done, but I definitely think it's either Nexus World or something revolved into that. Because I think everything we've also talked about, it's going to lead into some sort of multi-world situation. And if Nexus is a part of it, that just makes more sense.
Yeah, I feel
so, you know, it's still like it puts it in your frame of mind. There's not really an answer, but it gives you something where it's like this is all tying into what we've talked about, where we think the end game is getting into Doctor Strange 2 and the multiverse of madness, and Nexus just makes sense correlating those two things.
Yeah, I feel you.
Can I?
Yeah.
Oh my god, I'm so excited about this. All right, so the Nexus, like you were saying, like there's Nexus beings, and then there's also like a Nexus like world, I guess is what you said. I'm not sure how you described it. Thor?
Yeah, basically like it's this central hub of all these other multiverses, basically.
Right.
It's like
so
World
I feel
War and everything else. Yeah.
Right. So I feel like that's going to tie into Loki, Spider-Man 3, and Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness, right? Because like, all three of those kind of deal with other worlds and multiverses kind of collapsing on each other. Because I mean, Loki visits a bunch of different places. Matter of fact, he gets captured because of doing it. Also, I want to mention that Jean Grey and Kang the Conqueror are actually technically both Nexus beings. And I don't know if you guys saw this or not. Jonathan Majors, who was one of the actors, like one of the leading actors on Lovecraft Country, was cast as Kang the Conqueror for the MCU. So if they're introducing the Nexus now, then this is going to be something that we're going to see later on. And I, from the jump, like when I was like, if every one of these commercials has to do with like Wanda's well-being and her mind, Nexus seems right, because like at this point she's in a state of depression and sadness, and this is like one of those pharmaceutical ads. If you're experiencing loss or whatever, it was like it was perfect for what this had to be for this particular period, or for this particular era of the show.
Yeah.
I thought that was fantastic, and they did a great job of like shooting it right, because like even there was a moment where like the woman falls onto the bed, and then she's there, and like in the next shot she just walks forward. So like they flipped the stage so the bed was just on the wall and she just walked out of it, as to show like coming out of that scene. I love the way they did that. Even Mike said it, I love the way that they did this commercial. It was amazing. I mean, like, it was perfect. And so even reading some of like the below text of like, may cause this and that, and they're like, and all the things that she's going through, grief, depression, anxiety, like it was like all this stuff. They did a really great job of introducing the Nexus in that regard.
Yeah, and I think the end tagline, I think it was either make the world the same or make it your own, like something along the lines of like either change it for yourself to make it better or keep it the same.
Right.
And so it was very cool and very well done, and like all the ads you see on TV now is like exactly to a T, like those aspects. It was really good.
Yeah, no, I liked it. And Eddie nailed it with some of this stuff, like Kang the Conqueror's in there, Vision's also a Nexus being, which I find interesting, and obviously Jean Grey. But so we'll see how that plays out, but I definitely think it's something that's gonna kind of come to fruition here at some point.
For sure.
So shortly after that, we get back into Agnes with the boys. The part that I found most interesting here, there's two things I want to hit on, and I'm gonna switch the background right now. I've got Nexus Beans. I'm gonna pull up this other guy who, but what I'm looking at right now, I was just looking at like a Wikipedia for the Nexus Beans. What I've got right up now is Nicholas Scratch, which I'll talk about in 2 seconds. But so like Wiccan mentions to Agnes that she's quiet on the inside, right? Which I'm curious to hear you guys' thoughts on that. But she talks about her rabbit Scratchy, and that's why I've got this Nicholas Scratch up in the background, because this might just be an Easter egg that means literally nothing. But Nicholas Scratch is the son of Agatha Harkness, and he's a resident of New Salem, Colorado, which I want to touch on that a little bit later. But basically, and there's some Salem 7 stuff, which is the part I'm going to talk about. And he's got all these different things. He talks about his resurrection. He's tied into the Fantastic Four. He's tied into with Mephisto. So I don't know. So 2 questions for you guys is, do you think... why is Wiccan got these issues with Agnes being empty, or what your guesses are? And a similar question I asked before, Nicholas Scratch. Am I stretching here? Is this just a silly Easter egg? Like, what's up? Like, I don't know. Eddie, you want to go first?
I'll go for it. Yeah. I think when Billy says, "You're quiet, Agnes, on the inside," when we're first introduced to Billy's powers, it's during the Halloween episode. He can hear everybody. It's almost like that moment when, I think it might have been Professor X. They showed his childhood, when he first got his powers, how he can hear everybody's thoughts, right? When he's with Agnes, she's powerful enough being to block out anything he might try to do, and I think she knows that because she kind of helped create these kids, which I think we'll get to in a moment. But I think he says that because he can't read her like he can everybody else. She's not giving away anything because she's that powerful of a being. As far as Scratchy goes, I think that's probably true. I mean, it's very specific for it not to be something.
Yeah.
And I think there was a handful of moments in the show where Senior Scratchy has either been mentioned or had a moment in the scene, so it makes sense that he would be involved in Agatha's antics, we'll say, in her meddling. So yeah, Mike.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's definitely correlated somehow. It makes sense, even if it doesn't manifest into a real character. I think it's a nod to that in some way because she takes care of him. She's always petting him, like And the only thing I'll say about is it Billy who reads minds?
Yeah, it's Billy.
I actually think he can't read hers because I think she doesn't have a soul. Like, I don't think she's.
That's true too.
Like, I think she's been dead for so long that, like, I think he's hearing all these people's minds because they're all alive. Like I don't want to say she's a dead character, but I think she's like I do agree with you. I think she has power where she's controlling a lot of things. But I think it's a matter of either she's controlling it and keeping his mind out of there, or she doesn't have a soul to control, to hear thoughts, like she's her own being. She's a witch. She's just some like very powerful person, but not one that, if he can just read maybe human minds. I don't know what his powers go like through the comics really in detail, but I think it's maybe that sense. But also, if she's controlling a lot of things, definitely her powers being able to block his thought reading makes sense.
Yeah. No, I
for sure.
Yeah, and we'll see how it shakes out with this scratch thing. It might be literally nothing and just kind of fun, that all like almost like the license plate for Stanley and all that. But we'll see. So shortly after that, we get what I found to probably be the most exciting part of the episode, or maybe the second most exciting. And it was the reveal that we kind of also were expecting, that it was already happening, but Monica Rambeau, finding that courage to bust through there, going through there, having that scene where her body's getting pulled, all the quotes, and when she breaks through, like, in her eyes just turning blue. And it's like, to me, I don't know if they're doing Spectre or Photon or what, what's going on there with what they're gonna make her ultimately, but to me that was like, I don't know, a pretty dope moment for her to come through there. So Eddie, I know you've got some thoughts. Mike, I'm sure you've got some too. What do you guys think about like just that general scene?
I'm gonna let Mike go first because Mike had some really heavy thoughts in the chat. You can go right ahead.
Yeah.
So I think me and Eddie have a similar thought, where her getting in the rover to try to get in there, like that whole aspect was so pointless.
Yeah.
When she just like, she was so scared of being sucked in, and then gets out of the car and was like, no, I need to get sucked in. Like it was really like a pointless like couple minutes. Like, yeah, I thought it was a very cool scene how they did it once she ran in, and like her bodies are separating and her characters are separating, and you hear voices. I think you hear some of the things people have said about her. I think you maybe hear her mom. I think you hear her. I thought all that was cool. I thought her eyes, like the way her powers work with her eyes and what her vision looked like once she got in, all cool. But that whole process that got her to that, like, this show is too short to do that. You can't you can't do filler in a 35-minute show. Like,
especially when there's 9 episodes.
Thank you.
and also, like, every episode she's come off as like very strong, very like not afraid to do what she thinks is the right thing. And it just seemed like a weird moment where, especially when she was in the rover, like she was scared, and then out of the rover she was not. It just didn't make sense because she hasn't been afraid really that entire time. So it felt like, I don't want to call it like false. It stunk. That other than her getting in there, that was great. That rover part was a waste of 5-7 minutes of the show.
Especially if that ends up being the reveal of an arrow. It's like, all right, you guys let us down with that part of it. So
right. I wanna touch on that scene. To piggyback what Mike said, I agree. It was all the buildup of being like, okay, here's your superhero moment to like defy all the odds and go in there by yourself and just not take everything that you were told not to do and not question and just go right in. I get what they were going for. I think we all do. But it wasn't necessary. She could have just dove right in that thing and it would have been over. When she's going through the hex, though, the moment where you see all the bodies kind of phase out, I think you saw 4 of them. So like you saw her when she was coming out of the hospital. So like that was like her first kind of, I think that was like the one that was like furthest back. And then it was like her like in her astronaut suit. And then the third one was like kind of like her kind of government kind of look that she had when she first met Wu. And then it was Geraldine, who she was in the show. So like you're seeing all 4 of her iterations in the show in that one moment in the hex, right? And then you have Photon on the other end, and that moment when she has her eyes blue and she's looking at the town through that, it was almost like the Matrix when he has the vision when he has the sight of code. That was super sick. I love that. The scene that they're playing and all the voices we hear is a scene in Captain Marvel.
Okay, I thought so. I know I heard her mom.
Right. Yeah. Sure. I heard Fury and I was like, "Is this a recent? Like, it's like a so like it was her when it was about like I think her mom going into space with Carol to fight or that. So like it was a moment there, And then like when when your mother had you, she got the like I think it was the strongest kid or something like that. I forgot how it was.
And
And that was kind of a cool like tie-in. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's how she busted through. I mean, just already play off that point. Like that was the last when she was like getting through that last part when Carol says that and she busts through. So I am, and Eddie, I know you had a whole bunch on that, and that's like that's the part I want to see play out a little bit, where what happens with her and Captain Marvel and whatever's going on with that, because she clearly had some sort of like from that statement that you just brought up that was kind of like, all right, now she gets through there. So
because like we have no idea why, when Jimmy Woo had mentioned Captain Marvel, why she was so turned off by it.
Yeah,
we don't know why that is yet. I'm hoping they explain it by either the end of this series or Captain Marvel 2, so that we know why. I mean, I prefer it earlier than later, personally.
Yeah, right.
But I thought that was kind of a cool moment, how she just kind of busts through, and then she has like two what Deadpool called superhero landings, where you land on like the one knee and you kind of get up, and that was awesome. I just love
Anytime someone lands like that, I just
superhero land,
just because of that.
Ryan
So
Reynolds
bad on
coming
the
in.
knees.
so bad on the knees.
Yeah. Well, and that's
God.
exactly what kind of the next goes to, is she goes to Wanda, they have their interaction, and obviously like Wanda rips her up into the air. There's everybody in the town in that area are watching, including Dottie, by the way, and the mailman.
Right.
And they're just kind of sitting
I
there
want to touch on him too, by the way.
Yeah, and she comes down with that superhero moment, and and then Agatha, or I guess at this point it's Agnes, walks up just at the right time. So what did you want to touch on with all the people that kind of were watching that and that whole interaction?
The mailman and what he was wearing. He was wearing a
it was a blue and yellow it was like a blue and yellow UPS like FedEx vibe more than
and the symbol was like a bunny, and the symbol on like the hat was like a bunny, right? And I forgot what the name of the company was, but
I forgot the name of the company too, but I yes,
it was something quick, like I don't know, but I think it had to be related to like it might be an iteration of Senior Scratchy. I don't know, maybe it kind of hits too on the nose for what he was wearing, but that's a theory. But I just loved how like she pushed her out of the house, and then she lands, and Wanda kind of gives Monica a look like, you didn't do that before, like why, like how did this happen? Like that, and I thought that was kind of cool. And then you see Agnes kind of watching from afar, and she's like, I gotta stop this before she gets too far, and then she pulls her aside. And it's funny because for how old her character is in the show, she talks like she's in her 80s or 90s. She calls everybody dear, honey, like she gives you like the grandmother vibes. I mean, we know it's her, but she makes it very clear when she goes, okay, that's enough, dear, like, okay, honey, come with me. Like she's very like mother-esque when she brings away Wanda from Monica. Mike, you were gonna say something?
Well, I think it goes into what we kind of sort of touched base on, at least in my theory, where I think Agnes is controlling a lot of the characters. Like, I think those are her eyes for the show, or for like that world. So I think when everyone stopped and is looking at Wanda and Monica tussle, I think that's like her watching, because I know she looks out the window and she's like, oh snap, but I think it's kind of semi-correlated to the people being controlled by her. So it's like, hey, something's going down, and then she looks out the window, sees what's going on. But yeah, she's definitely an old lady. Everything she talks about, she's talked about an old lady. And then I thought the superhero landing was cool. I think also too, when the reason why Wanda gives that weird look to Monica, she sees her eyes turn blue. So I think there's a point of her, it's like, oh, you're not just like a normal human. You're something. You know, you
might be a problem for me.
Yeah. And Monica didn't stand down. She's like, hit me with everything you got. You won't do it.
Right.
And
Which is gutsy.
Right. She's been like thrown out of that world. Like, she's done it. So for her to be like, you won't like kill me. It's like, she might.
She might. But like, she believed in herself from the beginning. You know what I'm saying? Like she believed that Wanda wasn't a problem, because even when she got pushed out, she has still approached Wanda like she was a friend. So for her to stand up to her now that she has powers, which she has no idea how they work, is gutsy. Like you got to give it to her.
Yeah. But yeah, I thought it was a cool scene. And then Agnes, or Agatha, however we're calling her now, coming to the rescue.
Quote, unquote.
made sense. The thing I want to touch base on that we haven't mentioned yet, and we've mentioned so far since we've done this the 3 times, is even as a hot mess, Wanda's hot as hell. She looks so good. She was in pajamas and a robe, and she looked pretty good.
Yeah.
She was adorably like a hot mess. I was like, you're so hot. Like,
You're
it's
like a
just,
legit hot mess.
bad
Like, you're-
Sunday.
Yeah, you're like a hot mess. Like, a hot
yeah,
mess.
you're wearing baggy pajamas, slippers, and a robe, and I'm like, I'm in.
I'd still call her out on a date.
Yeah,
I'd still
wanna
take her to
make you
brunch.
cereal for breakfast.
We can move on, but I just want to point out that even as a hot mess, Elizabeth Olsen is a stone cold fox.
It's a perfect transition to the next thing. That's a super random thing that I don't want to touch about too deeply, but I want to throw it out there because that's the fun part of the show and us having our conversations is, one of the things that, the Salem 7. So I don't know if you guys noticed, and we have to, I might have to do this again, but remember when one of the first 2 episodes when, I was wondering who Dottie was and all these things, the amount of women who are in that group, I think it might be 7 with Wanda, but not including Monica Rambeau, who's obviously an outsider.
Right.
And part of me started wondering about like the Salem 7, which are all, by the way, birthed by Nicholas Scratch. And obviously who's tied to Agatha Harkness. They got tied to Fantastic Four. They've got ties to Scarlet Witch. So I don't really want to necessarily touch on this unless you guys have some theories on it. I just wanted to bring it up this one time to say real quick, like, I wonder if something's going on here. Now, again, these people are like, they're not all necessarily like witches and warlocks per se, but I just found it interesting. So again, am I crazy here? Am I reaching too much? Is there anything that you guys have thought about these guys, or you're just like, all right, yeah, cool story, bro?
I think there might be like something behind it. I never caught that. And I think it was the second episode.
I think so.
Where they're all sitting together, looking like PTA mom or PTO moms wrote that, like the homeowner society. You know what I'm saying? Like, or the HOA, the homeowners association. I didn't count that. But it is interesting that like she mentioned that Dottie has she has a lot of pull around here. Like, okay, like so you mentioned that, and then she's in like 3 episodes. Like it just feels weird that she wouldn't have more of a tie-in with that because of that specific line of dialogue. But that might have just been a throwaway line or whatever. But yeah, you're gonna say. Yeah.
And before I get off these, there is one of these people on the Salem 7 that has this weird like, and I know you guys can't see it, but it's a similar. It's a little bit different than Grim Reaper one, but it's similar to what was shown in the floor in one of the early episodes. So, and then what that kind of gets us to is what I'll call the grand finale with Wanda being in the house. She's asking about the twins. There's some more scratchy thing. There's the locust cicada on the curtain. Bunch of creepy music. Talking about the basement. And then we get the book in the basement, these weird vines everywhere, all this kind of thing. And then finally we get the current big reveal of Agnes being Agatha Harkness. So let's just talk about this a little bit. The scene overall, which the culmination to me, I at least want to come to at some point, is the book. There's 2 discussions being talked about here. One is it the Darkhold? I don't know if it's that. The other one is it the Necronomicon? Both books are very different. I don't know if we'll go into deep dives here, but Mike, we'll start with you. Like, just talk about this kind of like culmination as we start to see, all of this, the locust, all these things, and then going into the basement with the book and, Agatha revealing herself.
Yeah, I think it was definitely a cool scene when, Wanda goes down. And it starts getting creepy. I was like kind of not scared, but I was like, "This is creepy." Yeah. Like no one goes into a basement and it ever comes out well. Like there's never been a TV show or movie. It's like go down in the basement and it's like a party. It's not. You're gonna die.
It's gonna be a party.
So it was definitely like creepy.
Exactly.
Her lair or whatever you want to call it, I find it interesting. The purple vines. It also makes me think that basement is like the epicenter of possibly how the hex is getting its power. It's almost like it just seemed like it was those branches and the purple vines with the lighting. It just seemed like it was all too like. It must have to do with everything that's going on rather than just her house.
Yeah.
The book, I think, is more possibly Darkhold, just because it kind of makes sense and what's been going on, and also like the different. I think some of the things that there was like a goat's head with like devil horns, or there was like some different bones in there that were. It was all creepy,
Right.
And then when she finally comes down, Agnes comes down, and she's got her pendant, which was very integral in the first couple episodes, and everyone. That was a pendant, I think, in the comics that Agatha wears. And then one of the, I think her powers being purple is like a cool color.
Yeah.
It feeds off the, Wanda's red. And then, Monica has blue. So it's I kind of like that aspect, but it was interesting how she basically put her, like, she showed Wanda, like, she put that power in her eyeballs. Like what we saw in that scene was
that.
Wanda watching it, not like
God,
us.
I love that.
Yeah. The one thing I'm actually looking forward to is what her full outfit is, because it looked cool when she was flying in.
Oh yeah.
I think she's gonna have a cool costume, I guess we'll call it.
Yeah.
But it looked pretty cool from the half we saw. I was like, oh, that's gonna be like, she's gonna be like a rattle-tat, like raggedy, cool looking witch, I think.
Yeah.
So I want to see what she looks like in her full form. And then everything that they showed in the clip was super cool. Everything that she was controlling where you thought she wasn't. Up until, like I said, when we talked about, I think last episode, where I don't think it was coincidence that she was sitting in that car in the middle of the road waiting for Vision.
Totally.
Like,
Yeah, we all called that one.
That up. And also I think I called that she killed the dog.
Dude.
I got a note here. You mentioned Keanu earlier. John Wick is definitely going to be showing up in episode 8 or 9 here. So and he's coming
You
for
can't
Agatha.
kill a puppy. It never works out well for that
That's
person.
exactly
No,
right.
man.
That's exactly right.
So I thought it was a cool scene, how they did it and how they made Wanda view it. It should be interesting to see if Wanda, when they go into this episode, if she's controlled or if she's going to try to fight. Like, if she can't do anything, she's just going to, kind of like go to the next episode and try to create this new world sort of thing. So I'm not sure, but definitely cool. I liked, like I said, even though we knew it was coming, it was still very cool to see her reveal.
For sure.
Eddie?
Oh, dude. Like, okay, so let's go back up to back upstairs to the beginning. So the bug on the blinds or the curtains is a cicada, which apparently cicadas are meant to like symbolize immortality, which I didn't know that. Which is kind of funny because Agatha, I think I mentioned this before, she dates back to the Salem witch trials, which I believe were in Connecticut, if I'm correct. No,
No, Salem.
Salem, right? What? Yeah, no, but like,
Salem,
but there's
Massachusetts.
but there's a tie into Connecticut as well. I forgot how though. I'll come back to it. No, because her license plate and on her car is from Connecticut. It wasn't from Massachusetts. That's why it threw me off. Sorry. So it's just funny that like cicadas, they symbolize immortality, and she's been alive, or she's been around since the Salem witch trials. Anyway, so going down, when she goes down to the basement to find her twins, which I find interesting that she calls them the twins, because that's how she was referred to as far as her and Pietro in Age of Ultron as well. So it's kind of funny that they just carried that title over to the kids as well. Yeah. When she walks into her lair, I guess we could call it, or whatever, even the screen changes formats to like a wide screen, to from the whole view to like a movie view, which I thought was pretty sick. And then to add on to what you said, I think definitely it's the Darkhold book, which might be like the key to the whole plot. Like, it just seems like, because like the way it was kind of emanating like a power off it, it makes it seem like that's what's doing everything. So like Harkness's, her house is the center of this whole problem, and I think she's given Wanda a little bit of the power, but she can still control it through Wanda if she has to. Yeah. So I think Wanda's more of a cog than she is like the main problem. There was one theory that like the book might be from Camertage, where Doctor Strange was. Like, it might have come from there. I'm not sure if that's true or not. It's a theory, which I think was pretty cool. And then when she comes down and reveals herself and she's holding the rabbit, that's such like like the prototypical like villain, like hello, like you're here again. It's
Doctor
like,
Strange.
Exactly. It was very what was the show back in the day?
Inspector Gadget.
It was
Inspector Gadget.
Carmen San Diego. Or
Where was Carmen San Diego? Inspector Gadget. All
no,
those, you know, like
Gadget has the arm.
right, the arm and the cat. Yeah. So like, you know, it's just it was Claw. It was Claw. It was just a cute little like tie-in. And so then when she taps into Wanda's mind and shows her all of the moments in the show that she's at a hand and that she thought were just weird moments, they were all Agatha. Yeah. That was wild. Like I just love that she was behind the whole thing. And so she was essentially Pietro, or maybe she wasn't. I have no idea like what that part kind of meant.
I think she's controlling Pietro.
Okay.
I think he is someone from, like we talked about. I think they are setting up for an X-Men universe. I think she's controlling him, like because it was almost like a puppet. Like the lighting was like behind him, and he's like doing everything she does. So
right.
Sorry.
I know you're fine. Yeah, I mean, it was just every moment where you're just kind of like, wow. Like I was like, even the moment where she gets Herb, and you know he kind of flips out, and then it was weird that she makes him cut the brick with the chair, you know, with the hedge clippers, and then she tells him not to speak. It was that was just a weird. I was like, how do you explain that part? But whatever, I'm not worried about that. I do agree with Mike. I think her costume will be super sick whenever we see it. It was like we saw a glimpse of it when she's coming down the thing. And even at the end, when she kills the dog, I don't think any of us were shocked by that. I think that was definitely true. There's a theory again out there that there's a plant that she uses that I think was used in the comics to kind of get people to kind of fall in line to her liking, I guess you could say.
Okay.
And if you go through the episode, she's done that in multiple ways. She brought a plant to their house when she first met them. And then she's spraying the kids with some kind of like perfume or something like that,
like lavender.
Yeah. And so like there's been different moments where, you know, she's been giving these like products, and even Wanda takes like pills, I think in the beginning of the episode, which might have been related to that particular herb or whatever she's using, that flower.
Yeah.
And I think that it kills dogs too, so it's kind of a good tie-in for like the plant that she uses, which I can't remember what the plant's called, but yeah, for her to kill the dog wasn't surprising. Again, I agree. You kill a dog, you got something coming bad for you. I just no, man. Even I float in that category.
One thing I will say about your plant aspects, Eddie, is in the mid-credit scene that we'll talk about. Surrounding her house is just purple flowers,
right,
all over the place.
Is it lilac? Is that what it is?
I have no green thumb, so I can't tell you. But I do know that when Monica was rocking around, every part of that had purple flowers in each part of her yard. So I think you have something there.
Right.
I got you.
Thor.
Now, well, before you guys totally just rule out the Necronomicon, I just want to tell you that there is a tie with Scarlet Witch to Agatha Harkness in this, where that Agatha Harkness was saying that it would be helpful in getting rid of with Wanda's demon problems. So, and Doctor Strange had a copy as well. So who knows? Anyway.
Right.
But
we'll knock it out. But like it is, it's one of two theories for sure.
Yeah, it seems to be. You know, it is interesting that it could be a book from the Doctor Strange library. I forgot the name of it, but
Gamerz.
Thank you.
Pardon me. You're welcome.
Yeah, you know, and we talked about Baron Mordo the other day, so maybe he did something and gave her that book to help do something because he didn't want all these sorceress or sorcerer type beings out there. You know, I can see that being a play. You know, I don't know, but I mean, I definitely loved how all of that kind of came together. You know, you guys mentioned some of the things in that room. I kept wanting to see, you know, what else was in there, and you know, I was like, I don't know, it just seems very demonic and very kind of. I mean,
it was a creepy cave.
Yes,
it was
totally
straight up.
I mean,
you got the vines leading into the outside to it. That was just so weird. This is crazy, dude.
Yeah, and part of me starts going to the point, and I think we talked about this a little bit today, Eddie, too, is that the idea that, okay, if Agatha Harkness is the villain, so to speak, or is the person pulling all the strings in this show, how do you feel about that? Like, if there's nobody else, like literally we've got our reveals, there was no real Luke Skywalker moment, this is it, there's gonna be something that's gonna maybe be one minor cliffhanger that ties into a movie after this.
There has to be.
And it just builds Wanda towards being basically more of a villain, you know, or more of a issue for Doctor Strange and people to deal with. And I'm gonna answer the question myself, and I'll let you guys go. But I mean, for me, look, I love all things MCU, but I will have to say that my expectations and my hopes would have gotten the best of me. That I would be a little bit let down and say, oh man, I was hoping for a Nightmare at least, or a Grim Reaper or Mephisto or something, and then if I don't get a Fantastic Four review on top of that or something along those lines, or Professor X, being like, hey, I'm here and I'm helping, bring your mind back. I don't know. I'll love the series. I'll still like it. I've been burnt before by Lost, Game of Thrones. You know what? I know this is only one season, but don't do it to me. Don't do it to me. So, I don't know. That's where I'm landing on that. That's my thoughts.
Mike, you want to take this one?
No, go. You can go, Eddie.
All right. So Thor and I were talking today, and he was like, "What if that happens?" Everything he just said. Yes, it would be wildly disappointing if she was the villain, and you're like, dang it, there should have been more to this. I just don't believe it's gonna. I just don't believe that. I just don't believe it's gonna happen because they're. I mean, specifically Paul Bettany is adamant that that the finale is going to be like this, grand, you're gonna be what kind of moment, and I'm looking forward to that. Yes, we've gotten our hopes up before, but that's part of this game, I guess. I mean, there was several moments in this show that were like, we didn't need that to happen. Our hopes up were this, and that didn't happen. So I don't think that they can miss on this one. One thing I thought would be dope, and I think we discussed this today, Thor, was that they reveal Agnes. All right, cool. Agatha Harkness is out here. Awesome. And then maybe an end credit to the end of the series would be her going back to maybe Mephisto, Nightmare, somebody, and just being she failed. And it's kind of that kind of Thanos introduction, you see half his face or something like that, and it kind of just comes out. That might be how this ends, leading into the next movie, which I think is Doctor Strange, which would be dope. I would love that too. Mike, I can see you're agreeing with me. I want to hear your thoughts on that.
No, I was gonna say I think with these Disney series shows, you're not gonna get the big bad epic person that they're gonna make all these next movies for in these things. I think you're going to get these ancillary villains that are perfect for these shows that kind of, like you said, that work for this other big bad that they're going to introduce in the movies. Because I think the movies, for them, the big bad is more important than this TV show, in my opinion. So I think even if Agnes is call it the Loki of the first Avengers for this show, I'm fine with, you know what I'm saying?
Right, I know what you're saying. Yeah.
I'm fine with that. And I think she's been good so far. Even that reveal, I was like, this is cool. She seems like she's a good uneven pace with Wanda, so I think she can match up pretty well. Also too, I mean, if you think about even Falcon Winter Soldier, which is coming out, I think the bad that they're talking about is Zemo, who's just a regular guy, but he's probably got some, I think there's going to be bad people for the show that actually work for someone else that's bigger and badder and worse for movies down the line, which I'm fine with, because I think it gives a good series and it gives good action and kind of good stuff, and then you'll just want to watch the movie to see what happens. Because if there is this big reveal, like Eddie was saying, I think everyone's going to be stoked for the movie.
For sure.
If it sets up for Doctor Strange, big bad, everyone's going to want to watch Doctor Strange and be like, let's do this.
Let's go.
And same with, which will then lead to Spider-Man, or, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think everything's going to correlate with everything. I just don't think you're going to get, even if Mephisto is the big bad, you may get a glimpse and an end credit scene or something like that, which I'm totally fine with. I'm fine with whatever they do at the end of this. I don't need a big bad, because I think Agatha has showed she can kind of hold her own as being kind of a witch.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry,
Agreed.
fudged up witch.
Right.
My bad. Sorry to swear. Fudged up
You're
witch.
okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, like I mentioned, I'll still be. I mean, Mike, you're convinced me a little bit, maybe, but I mean, and like I said, I led with it. I let my hopes and expectations get the better of me, and I think it's just because we haven't had content in so long. We've been locked up for COVID, all these different things. that I'm just like grasping at, like, where's my MCU? Like, I need something here. And
Just itching for a fix.
yeah, honestly, it's like, gimme, like, I need something. So yeah, you know, I think
You gotta trust the process, man.
Yeah.
look,
We waited like 3 years for the Infinity War movie.
I know, bro. That John took a
For
minute.
Endgame. For
Yeah.
Endgame, there was like a 2-year gap between Infinity War and Endgame.
it was so worth it.
It was. Oh my god.
So yeah, I mean, look, and you know, we'll see how it shakes out. Obviously, we've touched on the mid-credit scene a little bit with, you know, Photon, Maria, Monica Rambeau getting ready to go in the basement, and Pietro coming up on her, and the line that I just love is "Snooper's gonna snoop." You know, that's gonna be all over the place, and I don't know. I'm super excited to see what happens next episode. I'm starting to set my expectations back a little bit more, like I was saying, because I think it's gonna be a flashback episode with what happened to Wanda after the funeral, like how she ended up going to Sword and taking Vision's body, and then potentially like how the Hex started maybe coming together a little bit. I don't know. I think that's kind of what the next episode is going to be about, and it's going to set up the finale. I mean, I think that's the whole thing, and then everything's going to happen in the finale. And I don't know. I'm still stoked. I can't wait, and I think they're going to nail it because it's Marvel. But I don't know.
Sorry.
No,
So
go.
there's one thing I want to mention for that mid-credit scene or end-credit scene, whatever you want to call it.
Right.
And I tried pausing and seeing it, but when Quicksilver shows up, it looks like his hair isn't silver anymore under the beanie.
Oh, I didn't see that. Yo,
Really?
what?
It looks like he has like normal hair, and I could be wrong. Like I tried pausing it, and you can't really tell, but it doesn't look like he has the silver hair anymore.
Right.
And depending what part it is, his side, and this is getting a little bit too much, but like his sides, like right, you know, you guys can't see it, but I'm showing it on camera, that like basically like above your ear. I thought I remember that actually being dark in the original, like in this part when he showed up at the door for the first time. It was just his tips.
No, you're right. But because the beanie was kind of off his head, you should be able to see more of his hair. You're right. He had like a layer of white and dark, because that's what the
You're
original.
saying it was the light
Pietro
part
had.
too, huh?
But I could have sworn, like it just like I couldn't see a hint of any silver, which I found weird.
I'm gonna
watch
have to
that back.
rewatch.
If you're looking at the picture, I could be wrong. I can't see anything.
You're
watch
gonna
that
make
back.
me see this for a 4th or 5th time. That's what you're gonna do here. You know what I mean? Like, yeah. So, what you got? Any closing thoughts, Eddie, before we kind of wrap this thing up, or as we wrap this thing up?
I do want to add one thing with the I guess the mid-credit scene, we'd call it that. When Pietro comes up on Monica, she turns around, her eyes are purple.
No, her eyes were blue.
Were they blue or were they purple? I'm pretty sure they were purple.
They were blue. She had like her photon powers going on.
Okay, I wasn't sure because
I thought
I'm
it was
pretty sure
purple
I
too.
thought they were purple, but I mean, if they weren't, it doesn't matter. There was one thought that like maybe she might be controlled by the Hex, which I don't think so. I think she's just seeing everything that's down there, kind of like through that, we'll call it like her Matrix vision. I think that might have been that. I don't think that she's been captured by Agnes yet, or Agatha. But yeah, I don't think there's anything going on there outside of her just kind of either using her powers or getting getting used to them, or just kind of coming up. When Peter came up behind her, it's hard to keep this guy in line. When Peter came up behind her, it kind of shocked her. So yeah.
And by the way, Mike is right. I'm looking at the image right now. I've got it up on the screen. You guys can't see it, but it looks pretty blonde to me. So.
Oh, with Quicksilver's hair.
Yeah. I don't know if it was just
That's
an
crazy.
actor situation where they just needed to bring him back on set and they just didn't have time to do it, but. Yeah,
It looks
so
different, right?
it's different.
There might have
It's
been a reason.
Yeah, I mean, it could have literally been like just a shooting reason where they had to that was the only time they had to do it and they didn't have a chance to silver it up. But
also one of my thought processes, if she was controlling him, he's actually just a regular guy that she made, and it's almost like a nod to X-Men,
yeah,
Right.
or whatever. But he's like a character, and he's like just a normal guy in that world, like Westfield
Yeah.
or Westview. Sorry.
I can see it.
But yeah, I did notice that. I was like, huh. But that's it. But
So,
yeah.
Mike, you got any other closing thoughts?
no. Again, good episode. I think if really that connection for Monica to the Rover was just that soldier that stinks.
Yeah.
Other than
Sitting on
that, I like Monica's progression as potentially her powers as Photon. I think she's really good. I like her character. It'll be interesting to see what they do with Kat Dennings' character, because she was in a van, like just
Down by the river.
like miles away.
Right.
So I don't know if she shows up to help because Vision just left her to drive the slow truck. So she might not even be an important character to next week's episode. But
I think
no,
Monica will save her
honestly,
though, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I think she's going to be a character for the future, and that's fine. But honestly, it was good. It was a good episode. Again, good reveal, even though we saw it coming. I really have no qualms. I think the only qualm we all agree on is if she wasn't talking to like Mr. Fantastic or
Right.
or
Something.
anyone cool. So
We
if
need
it was
somebody
just to get
cool.
this dumb rover, it was a dumb 7 minutes of TV.
That
Yeah.
build up was like so anticlimactic. I was like, that was
Yeah.
this random soldier, bro.
Who's Captain Gooder? Who cares
Right.
about that?
I don't think she exists in the Marvel universe. So
Yeah, but no, I mean, all these episodes, I've enjoyed every episode so far. They haven't, even how they're wildly different, they haven't strayed like my attention away. So
yeah, I'm with you.
it
So,
should be interesting for next week.
Yep, and that's what we'll look forward to is episode next week. We'll obviously do another recap. Hope you guys are enjoying this. I know I'm enjoying it. You know, Mike and Eddie enjoying it. So hammer down that like button, click that notification bell, subscription button, all that kind of thing. Discord link in the description below if you've made it this far. Thank you for watching. And until next time, hope you have a wonderful day. See you guys.